Joining us now, Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne from House Transportation, along with Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich. Both of you, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Congresswoman, your reaction to that story. The president named Vice President Harris the border czar. She said the border was secure. And now the president is claiming they inherited a broken system when Biden has been in D.C. since Nixon, the Nixon era. And he's been on Senate Foreign Relations. He knows this border has been a problem, and he's never been there.
No, and that's the problem. I mean, he's been in office for 50 years and he's never been down there. Neither have these mayors from New York and D.C. and Chicago. They haven't had to deal with the effects of what's happening at our borders. I was a mayor in a Texas city, and I saw firsthand what happens when you have illegal immigrants come into your city. You can't plan for them. You don't have the infrastructure. We saw our schools overrun. We were building schools that by the time they were open were already too small. We saw people come in and not have enough housing, what it did to our infrastructure, and we were not prepared. You were never prepared when you have no idea who was in your city.
You were the mayor of Irving, Texas, right? Irving, Texas?
Yes.
So that's a big city.
Irving, Texas.
That's a big city.
250,000 people.
And if you didn't have the infrastructure, right, to deal with it then. Okay. Mark, your reaction to this news coming in. California Governor Gavin Newsom asking the DOJ to consider charging Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Texas Governor Abbott with kidnapping for sending illegal immigrants to other states. Do you see them coming with a ransom note or a gun to their head?
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous, Liz. And the reality is Governor DeSantis should be praised because apparently he's the only one that can make the airlines actually get flights to arrive on time and at the destination they're supposed to be. And the reality is the Democrats were welcoming people illegally coming into our country with free flights and, free hotel rooms. And now apparently when their itineraries include, liberal cities, that's when they're finally going to object. And the reality is in places like Martha's Vineyard, we haven't seen a panic like this since the Jaws from Shark. So the left is finally getting a taste of their own medicine. They created this crisis, as you and I have talked about over this past year. Every state is a border state. Every city is a border city as a result of not only the flood of people illegally enter our country, but as a result of all the poison that's flooding across our border every day. Just this last weekend in Arizona, enough fentanyl was seized that could possibly kill 1 million people.
We already had enough fentanyl seized that could kill everybody in America. So Congresswoman, Congresswoman Van Duyne and Mark, you and all of us, we have been covering this for 6 years, since 2016. Right? I mean, Governor DeSantis, has had it. Now he's helping send illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, the swanky Martha's Vineyard, which is home to former President Obama. He reportedly considered Delaware, too. So this is a direct shot at sanctuary states and cities. They talk a big game, but this is about getting them to give a damn about the crisis they helped create. They incentivize blatant violations of federal law, and now the media is in hysterics. It's like the GOP governors are playing chess while the Democrats are playing checkers. We've got fentanyl, we've got drugs, we've got MS-13, we have violent gangs, we've got human trafficking. The border is in collapse, and now the Democrats have yet to answer the wake-up call?
Well, I mean, you're exactly right. We've been seeing this for years. Under the Biden administration, what we have seen is every single tool in the toolbox of Customs and Border Patrol have gone out the window. Every tool in the toolbox for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I mentioned the fact that when I was mayor, we were not prepared for this. But what we did was we worked with law enforcement agencies. Our police department had a fantastic relationship with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We actually enforced our laws. We were able to work with ICE to deport illegal immigrants who had committed crimes in our city. What we found was our crime rate dropped. We became the 5th safest city in the country.
Yeah.
What you're seeing in cities across the country right now is them ignoring that, crime rising. It's not a shock. It's not a surprise.
So that's the point.
And it's actually happening.
Well, that's what the Congresswoman is saying. So why are the Democrat governors or leaders and mayors saying, yeah, we've got drug gangs coming in. We've got crime coming in from the border, right, Mark? I mean, we've got Democrat Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's calling up the National Guard troops to deal with illegal immigrants bused to Chicago, but not for violent crime. This is the same governor who supports no cash bail for violent felonies like armed robbery, arson, and kidnapping, putting dangerous criminals back on the streets. And by the way, Mark, I want you to listen to this. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, she's now saying federal funds should be diverted away from your state to Chicago and these other blue cities. She's also appearing to tell Biden, you got to fix the border. Watch this.
Any dollar that goes to the state of Texas or the state of Arizona or any other state that is abdicating its responsibility and manufacturing this crisis in our cities, every single one of those dollars needs to be committed to cities like Chicago, New York, and Washington, D.C. But we're not going to take our foot off the gas to say that we need a comprehensive plan from the federal government. This is a national problem. It needs a national solution.
Biden would fly people in the middle of the night, dump them all across this country. There was no warning on any of this. We've had people right on the border helping, working ways. They will dump in San Antonio, and these people have, they're basically just there, and a lot of them end up migrating to different parts.
You know, Mark, what do you say to all that? Because U.S. law says you can't claim asylum if you're an economic migrant, right? So that's a big problem, too. What do you think of all that?
Well, you're absolutely right as far as the asylum claims. In fact, we have a lawsuit right now where we're challenging the Biden administration where they're attempting to allow DHS to offer or give asylum instead of going through the traditional process of using immigration judges, which we think will explode this crisis even more, and no one's talking about. And the reality is that when I hear the Chicago mayor talking or you see the Chicago or the Illinois governor, I keep thinking it reminds me of a bad scene, the bar scene out of Star Wars. It's like they're a bunch of clowns and they really don't care anything about this country.
Well, we got this
and
too.
That's why
go ahead, Mark. Finish your thought.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, that's why we continue to fight him in the courtroom, and shame on her, because the Biden administration created this, the Democratic mayors and governors encouraged it, and now, just because they get a little taste of it, somehow it's our fault. No, it's Joe Biden's fault. It's Kamala Harris's fault.
And Reuters, Congresswoman, your final word, Reuters is now reporting the White House, this is Reuters saying this, the White House is asking Mexico, pressing Mexico, to take in more illegals from Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela under Trump's Title 42 COVID-19 expulsion order. The White House is publicly fighting to end that in court. Your final word on that?
Well, people like Mike Pompeo, people like Brian, Representative Brian Harrison from Texas worked very, very diligently to make sure that we had tools in place that were handling what was happening at the border. They worked. In Biden's pettiness, his entire administration's pettiness to take back everything that was working that the Trump administration put in place, you now have a crisis. It was created by the Biden administration, and now they're having to walk it back. They're having to go back to the tools that were working in the first place. Congratulations, you finally figured it out.
Got it. Congresswoman Van Duyne and Mark Brnovich, thanks for joining us tonight.